um, to see if people join me. And if they do, great. And if not, great. I'm still going to be here speaking the word of the Lord that He's given me. I hope that that series that the Lord has given me about talking about spiritual things, their weight on mental health, I hope that that's helping some people. I have not gotten any comments or anything about it, but I have gotten some likes and stuff, so I hope that that helps. I know it's helped me. Um, it's helped me. Whatever the Lord has given me, oh, I'm thirsty. Whatever the Lord has given me is stuff that I most likely have gone through the experience of, if not fully, at least a little bit. So, yup. I'm just gonna go ahead and get started, and we'll see if people join. I know it's a Saturday evening, so I hope that a lot of y'all are out there having fun. Um, so it's okay. But I just wanted to kind of talk about the recent tragedies that we've experienced in our nation this past week, right? It's all been within 1 week, I think. And really it's been the last 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago, there was a shooting at a elementary school, I believe, a Christian elementary school. I don't know how many people died or were injured, but it was a few. I know it was a few. That was 2 weeks ago, right? If it wasn't 2 weeks, it was like 3 weeks ago or so. This week, there's been back to back, like, some serious tragedies. Obviously, the biggest one being the passing of Charlie Kirk. The second biggest one has been um which, I mean, that's kind of overshadowed most of the news. There was also that girl that got murdered on that bus. That was just awful. And there was also a shooting at a high school, I believe, that 4 people either got injured or died. I'm not sure exactly the count, but it was a few different people. And obviously this kind of stuff is really, really tragic. It's become normalized. Um it's become normalized in our society, unfortunately, to see death and not really be moved by it. And it speaks to a level of lack of sensitivity that we have, both just regular emotional sensitivity as well as spiritual sensitivity. If you can see any of these deaths as less than something to be bothered by, less than something to be bothered about, then there is a level of pride in you that has a hand in continuing these kind of tragedies. And that might sound really, really harsh, but it's just true. There's a quote by Martin Luther King, and it says something around the lines of, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Meaning, if we truly want justice, it can't exist just, oh, over there, that's an issue. Over there, those people are being killed or whatever the case is. We need to be bothered by it everywhere and anywhere that it's happening. And that's not just a good quote. That's actually the view the Lord has for all of us. He is bothered by us killing each other. He is bothered by how things are going here on earth. He's deeply troubled by it. We see this when he wipes everyone out with the flood. His heart is that and I can't remember the scripture that it says this in, but his heart is that no man should perish. The idea that we die is already not how it was supposed to be, not part of the design of man or the blueprint of how things were supposed to go. And I'll never forget this pastor saying something like, it's interesting that we can understand that death is a part of life, yet we're still bothered by it. Death is a product of sin, a product of the result of sin. It says that, and I think Ephesians something says something like, and when sin is fully grown, it gives birth to death, something around those lines. Someone can correct me with the actual verse. But that's not how we're supposed to be, because God didn't create anything for destruction. And it also says in another verse that he takes no delight in anyone passing, in anyone perishing. His hope is that all will come to repentance and accept him and have life now, life and life abundant as Christ died, and life eternally and forever, spiritually speaking. So he doesn't delight in anyone passing, whether you agree with them, whether you don't agree with them, whether you like them, whether you don't like them. If you can be applauding in this hour, if you can just not be bothered, you really, really, if you're not a Christian, then whatever. But if you're a Christian, you need to go and take that to the Lord, because by not being bothered, we continue the cycle. It's no different. We see it as different because we like to justify, because it's just human nature. We like to justify. It makes things easier and palpable for us, but that's not how it works. Death is death, and all life is precious, because it's God ordained. You didn't give life, so you don't have any right to take it. None of us do. And that it doesn't matter. So we should be outraged. And if you are a Christian, you should be outraged, because if you understand spiritual matters, you'll understand that this is the work of the enemy. Point blank, period. Doesn't matter if you listen to Charlie Kirk, didn't listen to Charlie Kirk. Doesn't matter if it's like, oh, that's another high school shooting. Okay, well, yeah, that's a problem. You shouldn't just be okay with just hearing that. That's a life lost. We have become so desensitized in this day and age, but especially here in the West. I don't know how other people deal with it, but I do. I'm gonna share this story. It's kind of like a little interesting thing. I was on Twitter once. This was maybe like a year or so ago. And for whatever reason, I follow a few Irish accounts, maybe because I went to Ireland and connected with people, right? And I follow a few Irish accounts, and they were talking about this teacher who had died, and it was like news everywhere. And I'm like, why is everyone talking about this? This person must have been famous. Like, let me look up who this person is, or find out more about the story, about the situation. And I just kept digging, and I couldn't find anything like significant. Like, to be honest, like I thought like, oh, this has to be some like major like public figure there or something, but no. People were just that upset that someone had died, and she had actually kind of died in like kind of a gruesome way, I believe, but people were just that outraged. And I said, my God, this honestly should be how it should be. We should all be so bothered when someone is hurting, when someone is, and it doesn't have to be death, it could be a number of things. When someone is R word, I don't know if I can say just any words on here, so the R word. When someone is abused, any of that stuff. And I was just so shocked that a whole, like, it seemed like people from all over the country just came together to um, consider this tragedy. And I'm like, really? Wow. It's actually kind of beautiful, but also sad because we in America, we've completely lost that. And I believe it has to do with the fact that it's been so normalized. I think it's because it's been so normalized. Every single day, if you're watching that news, every single day you are exposing yourself to the darkness that is around us. You're hearing a story of someone being killed. You're hearing a story of someone being molested. You're hearing a story of this, of that. And it's like, oh my gosh, when does it end? So I don't know. The only reason why I'm sharing this is because my heart has been heavy and maybe your heart has been heavy. And we can't let those tragedies, we can't just turn away from them. And if you are a Christian and you're listening to this, I pray that you will take some time out of your day and pray that the Lord will continue to soften your heart and make you aware. It says somewhere in Psalms, David says, "Search me, O Lord, search my heart. If there be anything unrighteous in me, like root it out of me." It's something that I pray often. I need to pray it daily, to be honest, but I pray it quite often because it's too easy for us to get hardened. It's too easy for us to be numb to other people's pain and suffering. And to be honest, if you're asking the question, well, why does it happen in the first place, Christian or non-Christian? Because of people who aren't doing what they need to be doing. Or as one quote said, um, something around the lines of like, evil continues because there's not enough good men to stand up. Something to that effect. I can't remember exactly what I said, but I'm like, that's deep. That's true. We would have nothing to complain about. We would have nothing to be um hurting over as a society if we all actually took it seriously, these killings and these deaths, and just this idea that life is just so disposable that you can just take people out. It's not right. It's not right. And it's so regressive too. That's the thing that really blows my mind. Like a we boast being a society that is progressive. We boast being a advanced society, yet we disagree with someone, so we take them out? Are you serious? That's stuff from like history. That's like, stuff Abraham Lincoln had to deal with. R.I.P. Abe, but we should be past this. We really should be past this as a society. We really should be. And, also if you can, if you feel led to, pray for his family, pray for his wife, pray for his kids, pray for that girl on the bus and her family. I should say her family because she's unfortunately gone, but her family. Pray that justice will be restored in this country because there's a lack of justice going on. That's what we're seeing. A lack of justice. Trying to right wrongs that we and fix things that are not fixable, to be honest. I'm sorry, but there is no cure for the heart sickness that is in man, the spiritual issues of man. There is a cure, and his name is Jesus Christ. Okay, that is the only cure. Outside of that, there is no cure, and we can throw money at the problem. We can throw therapy at the problem. We can do this and do that, and call out people and all this stuff, and the cycle will just continue. So pray for his family, pray for his wife and his children, and that the seeds of darkness that the enemy wants to sow into this American soil We got to come against that. That's got to be like our prayer point for this time in this place. Um because just like that quote goes about injustice everywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. If this kind of stuff continues, we will just have no justice. There will just be no what is it that people said that Trump took away? Democracy. There will be no democracy. There will be none of that. It just won't exist. And it's already kind of not really existing, but it will get to the point where it's just like not a thing at all. But I don't know about anyone else, but my heart has been so heavy this week. And I just I just pray. I just pray for this nation. It's crazy to think about that. Like, from my perspective, legally, we have the right to freedom of speech. But if everyone in their eyes and in their mind says, no, I don't agree with that person, they should be taken out, we really don't have that freedom of speech. Only legally. Socially, it's gone. We need both parts of it. But anyways, that was just something really, really heavy on my heart. That is just, we really have to pray. We really need to come against the plans of the enemy on this one. Really, 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 truly. There will be no help. There will be no salvation. There will be no getting out of this for anyone. If we don't get this right, we'll all be hurting because of it. God bless them. Anyways, um so just stay in prayer. Now more than ever, stay in prayer. Lord Jesus, help me. Help me deliver your word to your people. Help me, Father. Be with his family, Lord Jesus. Help us, Jesus. Help us. Okay, so let me get into the other topic that I need to address. And we're gonna be talking about this is gonna be a really good one. Um it's we're gonna be talking about what is it? Generational trauma and the effects. We're gonna talk about it from the spiritual angle, and then you'll see the effects of it on mental health. So let me see if I can. Oh, that's terrible. Okay. I was gonna try a different angle so I could put this down, but anyways, and I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, I do not read comments. I will not read comments. It's way too distracting. Even if you have support for me, I appreciate it. I see you. I love you, but I cannot read comments. I personally will get distracted. It's not you, it's me, okay? Real talk. So let's just get into it. So I did a video talking about generational trauma recently. You should definitely check it out. It's my latest video. Go check it out. It's really good. You can skip the first 30 minutes of it because I do kind of drone on from what I said in the part one, and I'm sorry about that. You know, Lord willing, I'll get better at that. But please watch that video. It is very, 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 very good, very profound. Um, so we use the term generational trauma interchangeably with generational curses and all that stuff. Um, and they're not quite the same. Now, I don't have a whole lot of understanding of, well, okay, let me back up for a second. There are four generational afflictions to consider: generational trauma, generational curses, bloodline curses, and um, I forgot the fourth one. Oh, generational pattern. I don't have too much of an understanding of the other ones, so I'm not going to speak on that. Generational curses and bloodline curses might be the same thing. I'm not sure. But I do know that there's a difference between generational trauma and generational curses. If you have a generational curse, that implies that you currently have a spiritual affliction, demonic affliction within your family bloodline, within your family, Um and deliverance is needed. If we're talking about generational trauma, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have a current um spiritual affliction, not in the same way that a generational curse would look like. We all pretty much face spiritual afflictions, but there's a difference when we're talking about something targeting your generation versus something targeting you personally as an individual. Now it can be similar stuff, and we need to know that what the enemy has tried in the past, he will try again if it worked. What the enemy tried with mom, he'll try with daughter. He'll try with son. What the enemy tried with grandma, he'll try with great grandma. Or wait, I said that backwards. What the enemy tried with great grandma, he'll try with grandma. He'll try with mom. Okay. Um because, why would you try something different if it works? It's a strategy of the enemy, okay? Um so generational trauma and such speaks to obviously a pattern of a wound. Could start out spiritually. It could just be emotionally, but it's a wound that has not been healed. Most of the time, if not all of the time actually, maybe. It's unknown. It goes unknown. And the reason why is because obviously if you're hurting and you're aware that you're hurting, you're going to seek healing, right? Like you're not just going to be like, "Oh, I'm hurting and I don't care." Most sane people anyways. However, the thing with generational traumas and a lot of traumas in general is that unfortunately people don't are unaware that they're hurting. Typically the reason for this is because it happened when they were young at a time and a place where there was either a limited ability or just no ability to understand or fully understand right from wrong. So, we see kids oftentimes just say things, no filter, just do things, without thought. It's because they don't have there's a discrepancy between their understanding of doing the thing and then the actual consequences that will be a result of doing that thing or saying that thing or whatever the case is. And it goes both ways. They also, if someone says something to them or does something to them, they don't understand the impacts of, what was said to them, what was done to them. Very, very rarely will they be like, "That was wrong. You shouldn't have done that." Blah, blah, blah. You might get one random precocious kid who can, stand up for themselves and good for them. But it's kind of rare. So unfortunately, these kind of wounds, that affected us early on will go unhealed. And because they go unhealed, and you go through life with this. I mean, think about it even. Okay, we'll just simplify this and use the example of if you have a physical wound, right? And you're unaware and you just let it go. What's going to end up happening? It's going to get worse, might get infected, and it could have very, very bad results after a while. Unfortunately, this is the kind of situation that we're dealing with a lot, especially in the West. Like it's very much a thing in the West. I'm not saying that it's not a thing in other places, but it's definitely a thing in the West. Um because I can only speak to, what I know. So, um a lot of people have wounds that they're dealing with or not dealing with, excuse me, that haven't been dealt with for generation after generation after generation. They have a lot of wounds, and that wound has just gotten bigger and bigger and festered and gotten what is it called, infected and all that stuff. And that's really a great metaphor for, emotional wounds as well. So much so that now we live in a time and place of privilege, of blessing, and we don't even realize that we're in a place where we can examine ourselves and examine our emotions and everything. We have that luxury afforded to most of us, and people are resistant. People are resistant. We have a whole generation of people, and I won't be naming names, but we have a whole generation of people who are resistant to that. They're resistant to it because they've gotten so comfortable with the pain that they've been carrying, the load that they've been carrying, that now it would become an offense to them to take it off. It becomes an offense to them to realize, like, no, like, you're hurting, you need some help. Somehow that's offensive to some people. And that goes into the whole conversation about a lack of a sound mind. Like, that's just crazy to me to think that someone, you know, would resist help. But we all do it, to be honest, to varying degrees. We all do it, excuse me. So, yeah. So, most of us have a pretty good idea of what it looks like to be, what generational trauma looks like. However, if it's not understood, you will not be freed, you will not be healed from your generational trauma until you yourself decide, no, this ends today. I'm gonna seek healing from this today. It doesn't just go away, especially if it's been years and years and years, or if the wounds are really, really deep. It won't just go away. You have to work at it. It won't just go away. This is why when people say stuff like, oh, like, that psychology stuff is nonsense and all this stuff, they're actually speaking from a place of ignorance and they don't even realize it, because you might not understand psychology or the things that have to deal with that kind of stuff, but there is truth to that. And if you have spiritual understanding, you'll actually be able to see that psychology is like the world's version of understanding spiritual matters, if that makes sense, without going into actual spiritual matters. It's like the introduction to it. A lot of a lot of psychology ideas and theories and stuff have roots of spiritual understanding. Now, of course, it's limited because it's not going any deeper than just what we can like assess with natural measures and stuff like that. But it is definitely not foolishness. It's foolishness to the one who doesn't have emotional depth. That's just how it is. Um, so we need to understand that now we live in a time and a place where the honestly I see it as a blessing from the Lord that we live in such a time and place that we can undo and examine self and undo some of those traumas of the past, but only if we're willing. Only if we're willing. Otherwise, we'll get nowhere. This is a revelation the Lord has given me recently that holding on too much to things, people's ideas, whatever, will hinder his ability to move in a situation. Why do I say this? It says in Isaiah, I want to say it's like 54:3 or something like that, but I can't quite remember, but it is in Isaiah. It says something around the lines of, "Behold, I am doing a new thing." It's God speaking. "Behold, I am doing a new thing. Don't you perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness, streams in the wasteland," something to that effect. And I'm like, wow. He's always wanting and willing and wanting to do a new thing. He's always looking for a way to do that new thing. He's always looking for a way to do that because that's just his nature. That's where he's seen, you know. So he's always ready and willing, but we have to be on board. This is actually a really interesting thing also to consider, kind of going along with what I just said. I had a situation, or I'm in a situation, I suppose, where the Lord has started working and started moving. And to be honest, at first, I didn't see it. I didn't see it at all. And I realized that you can miss the blessing of God. You can absolutely miss a blessing of God because of a lack of spiritual sensitivity, because of not being able to see that He wants to do something, or that He is doing something, that He's working on something. And you can be so married to how things were in the past. The example that just came to mind, thank you, Lord, is the Israelites trying to go into the promised land. Instead of realizing God and how He is and who He is and how He came through for them so many times when they were in Egypt, instead of realizing that, they were so stuck on the past and actually even their current circumstances, situations, that they were unable to see what God could do. It was like that wasn't even a possibility or an existence in their mind. They couldn't even see that. So what ended up happening? They ended up delaying themselves. They ended up being rebellious. They ended up in all this sin, like we all do, because they couldn't see what God was trying to do. It's easy to see God's hand and His miracle when it doesn't take much faith, you know, or when it comes really, really quickly, or something like that, you know, doesn't require too much of us. It's a whole lot harder when it takes months and months and years, or when it seems like the progress is slow. It's a whole lot more difficult. But that does not mean that He's not working. That does not mean that He is not doing a new thing. And if you hold on to the things of the past, you will miss the blessing that He is trying to give to you in the here and the now, or in the near future. You'll miss it. And That's because that's not something that he's going to like point out and be like, look at what I'm doing right here and right now. No, 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 no. That's up to you to decide if you're going to see that. It's really warm. I think I'm going to stop pretty soon. Maybe I'll be on here another half hour. We'll see. Depends on how long it takes me to get through this. But, yeah, so we have to be able to be spiritually sensitive enough to be able to see the move of God. Otherwise, we'll miss it every time. We'll miss it every time. It will become the past, or your ideas can be a stumbling block in regards to the hand of God moving. Your past or your ideals can be a stumbling block as far as you seeing the hand of God moving. Another example, Jesus goes back to his hometown, people who he grew up with, people who he saw who knew him. They had an idea of who Jesus was based off of how they knew him. And that idea became a hindrance to what the Lord was doing in this new time, in this new season. So they were unable to receive their blessing because they were looking at Jesus like, oh, yeah, there's no way. And this is something common that people in ministry face, that they see that it's like, I mean, I've had to experience it myself, and it's difficult. It can be really difficult. Family can actually be one of the biggest hindrances when it comes to this kind of a thing, when it comes to walking out what you need to for the Lord, because they see you as you've been and they can't let go of that idea of you. And that's not only just an issue spiritually, that's also just an issue in general. We can't be so married to an idea of someone that it divorces us from the here and the now, or for any possibility of them changing in the future. We can't be so married to that. In fact, a lot of relationships and stuff, this is a belief of mine. A lot of relationships suffer because people get used to the other person, and it doesn't have to be romantic. It could be any relationship, but they get used to how someone is. They get used to themselves, and then they don't see any room for improvement. They don't see any room for growth. They don't look at the person with new eyes. They start, looking at them through the lens of, you're doing this wrong and you're doing that wrong and you're doing this wrong, and they start to become resentful of the other person. Hold on. Sorry, the lighting was getting dark. Okay. Or the sun is starting to set, the lighting. But yeah, we can't we have to understand that life is a continually moving thing. And if you're not trying to improve, if you're not trying to grow, if you're not trying to do better, you're going to get left behind. Anyways, that was a little bit of a tangent. Sorry about that. So, yeah, nowadays we live in a time where we're privileged to be able to unpack some of these generational traumas and these hurts and stuff. But we have to realize it. A lot of people will reject that. Not everyone. In fact, mostly younger people do accept that. But unfortunately, where does that leave? Our parents, our grandparents, whomever, aunts, uncles, whatever. whenever someone says stuff like, I don't need to talk about my feelings, or we were just tougher back in the day, everyone's so sensitive and all that stuff, most of us have an understanding that that's coming from a toxic place. But I'm going to tell you why, because I'm not just going to like point something out and just leave you there. The reason why that's the case is because, number one, whenever you have someone who talks like that, they do not have a healthy view of self. Like, they do not know their limits, they don't know their strengths and their weaknesses, they don't have a good idea of that. Guarantee you. They might to a degree, but not like through and through. Number two, they probably have an issue with anger, most likely. I've never heard anyone who takes those kind of statements who doesn't have an anger issue. And if you, and those two points go hand in hand. If you have an anger issue, then you also do not have a good sense of self either. Because it takes you realizing, okay, I need to stop engaging with this, or I can only engage with it to this degree, and then anything more, no. Like, for instance, these comments, for me, it's actually not so much anger as it is just distraction. But for me, like, I know that sometimes people will be saying anything and everything in these comments, in this comment section. And if I engage with it and I get upset, it's kind of on me, because I know myself, and I know, like, one, it's a distraction, and two, it can like get me off course. So now it's kind of on me and not so much the person who commented. At least that's how I see it. So you have to know yourself. You can't be an angry person. I actually came across a verse. Oh, I wish I knew the reference. And I didn't even know this was in the word, but it says, human anger does not produce the righteousness that God requires or desires, or something like that. I'm like, dang, that's deep. And I was sitting with the Lord about emotions, as I have a lot, because that's an area in which we all can improve in. There's no like, well, like anything really, there is no like, okay, I've got that. That's no longer an issue for me anymore. No, 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 no. I mean, you can get to a place where you have a very good command of your emotions, but as life tries you, I guarantee you there'll be some new threat, some new fire, where you'll have to remind yourself, okay, let's keep control of our emotions. So it's a constant thing. But I was sitting with the Lord on it, because I mean, I've heard so many different things about emotions. Um I'll just say, like, within the community, there are some people who actually believe that emotions are like synonymous with the working of the devil. Like, wherever there's emotions, I've heard that before. It sounds crazy, but I've heard it before. And it's not true. God gave us emotions. God has emotions, by the way, if you didn't know that. He's not a human being where he operates with emotions, but he is a person, meaning he has his own mind, will, and emotion. Emotion. And actually, if you read the Old Testament, you'll see God really was in his feelings in the Old Testament. He really, really was. It's seen in the New Testament, but not nearly as much, and not in the same way. So God has emotions. But unlike us human beings, God isn't ruled by his emotions. God doesn't discern things by his emotions, but they're there and they're felt by him. So, number one, someone who takes those kind of statements about not needing to, talk about their problems or anything like that, like, or look down on people who do want to go to therapy or something like that. Number one, they don't have a good sense of self. Number two, they probably have anger issues. Or number three, they, if they don't have anger issues, they probably have something else, some other affliction that takes that place. Could be an addiction, could be something like that, where they're getting out those emotions in less than healthy ways. Um, because even if what you're doing isn't immediately like harmful or doesn't look like it, if you're feeling something over here and you're leaving it, um what's the word I'm looking for? What's the word I'm looking for? It's like suppressed. It's being suppressed, not addressed. And you're trying to cope with it over here, with something over here. Yeah, there's still a problem there. Even if it doesn't seem like it's a problem, it's still a problem. You're still not healed. And we're going to get into that in a minute, because that's a very, 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 very important thing to know and to understand what healing truly looks like. So, what I say. So number one, not a good sense of self. Number two, anger issues. Or number three, like some addiction or unhealthy way of getting out the feelings. Because we need to understand that feelings, they don't just go away. This is also a really, really important thing to understand. Your feelings are your own. Even if it's not the healthiest display of them, sometimes that's a spiritual thing, like a spiritual affliction. Sometimes if you're feeling anger towards most things are bothering you on a level where you are feeling angry, where you want to like go off on someone. That's more spiritual than anything. That's not normal. That's not healthy. That doesn't help anyone. That doesn't even help you. But say you're someone who maybe is a little bit sensitive and doesn't have the best command of your emotions, but you still feel them. That doesn't necessarily mean that, well, let me say it this way. All of us need our emotions to be under submission. We shouldn't be ruled by our emotions, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're in the wrong for how you feel. You're allowed to feel how you feel. Someone told me that the other day, and I almost cried because I'd never really heard anything like that before. I was like, oh, like I knew it intellectually, but I had never, like, had someone else validate me in that way. So I would like to validate someone in that way. You're allowed to feel how you feel. You're allowed to feel how you feel. However, there is a caveat to that, because, like, I know I don't have any jurisdictions over your feelings. You don't have any jurisdiction over my feelings. However, there is such a thing as being ruled by your feelings versus being able to feel how you feel in a healthy way, in a way that is appropriate and makes sense for the situation. Even if, say you're watching a movie with someone and you have more of a reaction to it, it makes you cry. The other person, they're like, yeah, it was sad, but why are you crying? What they did is so invalidating and wrong. I'm trying not to like get emotional myself. But anyways, it's invalidating and it's wrong. It's not right because they don't have jurisdiction over how you react to something. That's not not their domain. Hi. Hi Greg. That's not their domain. So you're allowed to feel however you feel. However, what's wrong in our society today is that people are so in their feelings that it's, how do I say this? It's becoming a stumbling block for rationality and for reasoning and to be able to think. When you think with the emotional side of your brain, that is like one way of thought. And then there's the logical way in which we think. This is seen in, there's the Greek terms for um, the different ways we think or try to appeal to someone: pathos, logos, and ethos. And if you ever taken like a speech class or something like that, you'll know what I'm talking about. But it's, the different ways in which we can appeal to someone, in which we can express ourselves. And it's how we're designed. It's beautiful. It's a part of you. But it can't be so a part of you that you lose touch with reality. That is what we're seeing a lot of in our world today, at least in America. I can't speak for other places, though. I think I see it all around, but like definitely in America, this is a really big problem. People are so emotionally attached that logic just goes out the window. There's just no logic to at all what people are saying or feeling or advocating for. Um, Not even a little bit. And that's a problem as well. It can't be like one or the other. This, on a personal note, you don't have to agree with me, but on a personal note, this is why I have to vote or think as an independent and as a, what is it called? So like, how there's like left and right. It's called moderate. There we go, moderate. Like, I don't consider myself conservative. I don't consider myself liberal. I consider myself moderate because my personal view, you know, you don't have to like believe this, but is that one side thinks very, very logically and one side thinks very, very emotionally. So it's kind of a problem because you're never using both sides of your brain. And that's, I mean, that doesn't get anyone anywhere. The proof, everything that's going on in this world, in this country, the fact that it doesn't even matter what the other side says, you just like, no, that's wrong, because I'm so in my logic thinking brain that I have, excuse me, I have no capacity to hear the emotional side to this. I have no capacity to hear someone else's perspective. See, that's a flawed way of thought because we will get nowhere, and we get nowhere. People are so married to their ideas and their side that we get nowhere. And of course, there's a spiritual element to that. That's the spirit of pride. Full front and center, that's the spirit of pride. The word that the Holy Spirit gave me when it came to um, intellect, I thought this was really profound. He said, intellect without humility is misappropriated pride. And I was like, what? That is so deep. Wow. Wow. Thank you, Lord. So, I mean, yeah, I think you get it. Like, I don't need to explain that anymore. But yeah, we see a whole lot of that going on, unfortunately, in today's society. And it's a problem. We can't be too logical where we have no room to care for other people like how we're supposed to, love other people. Actually, the example that just came to mind is the Pharisees. They were so in love with the law, with the letter, as it says in somewhere in Timothy, one of the Timothys, the letter killeth, but the spirit gives life. They were so married to their regulations, their rules, their religion, that they had no capacity to not only see the Lord, but care for people how they were supposed to. It was just, oh, you broke a law, let's stone her, you know. However, it can't just be, oh, well, whatever, you messed up, so we'll just like let that go and just, you know, there's room for grace, but grace can't just be something that means just everybody gets away with everything because, I mean, we'll have anarchy on our hands if that's the case. So there has to be some sort of, there has to be some sort of standard. And our own standard isn't working so well for us. It's just not. Let's just be real. It's really not. So, oh, dear Lord Jesus. But anyways, let me go back to my list. So when people talk about, you know, I I don't need any help. I don't need any healing. I don't talk about my feelings, whatever. There's a lack of sense of self. There's anger, most likely addiction and or just displaying their emotions in an unhealthy way. Um there's pride in that. I can't be told that they're wrong, and that also goes back to the first point that there's no sense of self because wherever you don't have a strong sense of self, you take on anything and everything. And unfortunately, that gives way to pride. Pride is actually the affliction of all of us. At any given time, we can't escape it. And that's just due to the fact that pride is just our way of seeing things, if that makes sense. Like, there's no way for me to, there's no, I try to be a pretty like thoughtful person, right? But there's no way where I can be thoughtful in absolutely every situation all the time, like that just it doesn't make sense. It's not possible. Um so there will be times when I act out in pride. I'm not even sure that pride in of itself. I'm not sure about this. I don't know. You can pray about this. Take it to the Lord. But I don't know if pride in of itself is necessarily a bad thing because people also will say like, "Oh, I have pride in my work and pride in that." And that's a really good thing. So I think it actually might honestly be like a neutral thing. But we tend to equate it to negativity. Like selfishness, for instance. Sometimes you have to, which is very closely related to pride. But there are times when you need to act out in selfishness. If you don't take care of yourself because you're too busy taking care of everyone else, you're going to not be able to take care of everyone else. So you have to take care of yourself. You have to care about yourself enough. You have to love yourself enough to be a little bit selfish. And selfishness in of itself is not wrong. I'd imagine it's probably the same thing with pride, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't have that understanding. So, I don't know. But anyways, so if you're thinking is or you know someone who's thinking like I don't have to talk about my feelings, whatever the case is. And again, I know this is something more towards the older generation, not so much most people within, you know, XYZ don't think like that, but it's still important for us to know because we're still associated with people who think like that and they need help and they need healing and we need to understand that with like grace and not just like, "Ugh, you're so stuck in your ways," because that doesn't do anything for anyone. Most people, they can only give, well, not most people, sorry. You can only give what you have, right? You can only give what you have. You can't be asked more of something that you don't have the capacity to give. How our society has worked is that the idea of mental health and obviously spiritual health or spiritual edification has not been there. So people have gone through what I'm talking about, generational trauma after generational trauma, and just lived as if they were fine, and they didn't even realize some of the wounds that they were sustaining. So if you want to look at it with a lens of like, how dare you, blah blah blah, well, I'll get into that in a minute, but that's not right either. So if you know someone who takes that kind of mentality of like, I don't have to talk about my feelings, blah, 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 or shames you for wanting to talk about your feelings or anything like that, know that they're speaking from a place of hurt, that they're speaking from a place of trauma. You know, easier said than done. I get it. I'm not like, I get it. I'm like, the irony of this is that the Lord is having me speak on this and I'm not even fully healed from this. I have some amount of healing and I have some amount of wisdom in this, but I'm like, Lord, what? You want me to talk about this? And I'm not even on the other side of it. Like, I can't say I'm fully like healed from this. There are some things, yes, but not everything. Thanks for the hearts. I appreciate them. Anyways, so we got to pray for the people in our families who have that kind of mentality, because you're not going to argue with them to the point where they're like, you know what, okay, I'll just, change my ways. No, 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 no. If it's been a generational thing, something that they need deep healing from, you fighting with them is not going to give them that deliverance and healing that they so desperately need. It's just not. It's actually going to escalate the situation for you, for them. Maybe I have heard stories of like, people becoming estranged and then like maybe then like someone after like months, after years feels led to like, okay, we got to fix this, blah blah blah, but you don't want it to get to that level. Come on, you don't want it to get to that level. You never know when the last time you're going to see someone is. You really don't. And this kind of ties into my introduction of this whole thing, just the events that we've seen in this past week. Like, life is so fleeting. You never know. So you just, there's a verse I believe that talks about you don't, what is it? Don't go to bed with anger still in your heart or something. I misquoted it, but don't let the sun go down. That's what it is. Don't let the sun go down and you still be angry, or something to that effect. I can't quite remember. Someone needs to hi. Someone needs to be my Bible verse person who's just really, really good with it, because I'm not very good at references, unfortunately. Um, but anyways, so you have that family member or whatever, maybe it's you, who, you say like, I don't need healing, whatever. Lack a sense of self, anger, some sort of addiction or unhealthy way of getting out those emotions, because they're still there. Oh, I think I abandoned my example, but if you're watching a movie with someone and you have um a reaction to it, it's a sad scene or a sad movie or whatever, you have a reaction to it that they don't have. Them telling you, why are you reacting that way, like it's just a movie, that doesn't get rid of the feelings. Like, we need to understand feelings and someone's thoughts are our God-given free brain territory, for better or for worse. God can deposit thoughts onto your spirit, God can do things that will move you emotionally, but he doesn't control them. There's a difference. So we as human beings think, oh, we're just going to shut down you. Why are you reacting that way? You don't need to react that way. You're so sensitive, blah, blah, blah. It's like, do you realize the amount of pride that you're speaking from by saying that? By thinking that you have jurisdiction over someone's thoughts? And it goes both ways, obviously. Like, if someone said that to you, too. That's so, like, it's so wrong. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Someone can think whatever they want to about me, about anything, really. They can think, they can feel however they want to. I could agree, I could not agree. They could think I'm the worst person, they could think I'm the best person. Neither of that is true. I know myself. I'm not either one of those things, but guess what? At the end of the day, whether I agree or not, that's your call. I'm out of it. I'm not gonna try and like play God when it comes to your emotions, and I walk in so much peace because of that. Now I could always do better, to be honest. I could. But y'all, please hear that lesson, because we we really get so worked up and upset by how people think and how people feel about, you should feel this way, you should be upset about this. Says who? Looking at it from a spiritual angle, we're all called to different things. We're all called to different passions. We're all called to different things. And what bothers me may not bother you. And what bothers you may not bother me. And that's okay, because guess what? We all need to work together to come against the powers of darkness. And what's in me, if that's different from what's in you, which it will be, that's great. Like, you've got your area, I've got mine. And we're still working for the same team. It doesn't, it's not a threat like, oh no, you should be no, 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 no. We're way too controlling as a people. And I think, like, that's just our natural disposition. We just want to control things. But where we get into error, where we slip into pride, just like that, is that we want to control other people. And that's not okay, because if God himself ordained a free will aspect of life for us, we have no right to try and take that away or to come against it. And we don't realize that's that oh my gosh, that is what we are doing, but it's what we're doing. This is why I shared the thing about, I just stopped arguing with people. I just stopped arguing with people, because it's like, if we're gonna go back and forth like this, obviously, you already have your ideas. I don't need to be here for it. You argue with the wall. I'm not here for this. So, back to my list. Sorry about that, but I just had to share that just by saying like someone should think a certain way or feel a certain way doesn't mean that you've just now taken away their emotions or their thoughts or anything like that. You've probably just added an extra burden to their plate. So now they already felt bad. Now it's like, oh my gosh, am I in the wrong? Is it me? It's such a gaslighting, it's a gaslighting tactic, and it's actually really cruel. You need to let people be. Now, obviously that doesn't mean, well, there's another side to that. Obviously there is room and time for you to correct someone, which I know might sound contradictory, but if you're going to correct someone, you need to have a solution for them. I've said this also a million times. Don't just correct people and be like, no, you're wrong, and just leave them there. That's cruel. That's condemnation, actually. And that's not right. And that's how you can tell if someone's genuine or not. It's one of the ways, like, within the gifting that the Lord has given me, that the Holy Spirit has given me. It's one of the ways I know if someone is speaking from like a actual um like a place where it's like, okay, I can listen to them, like they're right, blah blah blah, is if there's something that, you know, they share that it's like, you know what, this will help me do better. This will help me in my walk. This will help me with relating to people or speaking to people or whatever the case is, versus just wanting to add extra weight to my burdens, because unfortunately people do that. Unfortunately, it's actually probably more more common than not. Most people will point out something wrong in someone else and have either no idea or zero care to actually help them out of, excuse me, help them out of that place, help them out from those burdens, help them out with those burdens. So, yeah, it just, don't be telling people how they need to feel or how they need to think about things. Um I've also realized that we all have very different capacities when it comes to feeling and hearing. Hearing? I guess hearing, sure. Feeling and thinking. We all have different capacities, and again, what moves you might not move me and vice versa. But also, when it comes to things of the spirit, if you're a more sensitive person, this may help someone. If you're a more sensitive person, there's a very good chance that you will be able to, or ordained to carry the burdens of other people, intercede for other people, whatever the case is. That you're willing to carry other people, or not willing, sorry, ordained to carry other people. That you are able to represent the heart of the Lord to his people, because that's not easy. That's something that you have to be sensitive in spirit and just emotionally to be able to do. Like, for instance, when I started this, I talked about, you know, how murder and killing, all of this is just wrong. Like, don't look at the, well, what about this and what about that and all those considerations. That's God, that's God's heart towards people. He is not delighted when people die. He is not, it's outside of how it, the original design of things was. Now, I don't want to repeat myself, but yeah. So he's troubled. It hurts him to see when people pass. He's bothered by it. And okay, he's bothered by it not just because of the person passing. Even, let's just say it's someone who passed but they died peacefully in their bed. Great. Okay. It's actually a homecoming for them, you know. If they're, you know, if they're a Christian. But he's also bothered by it because of how it's, how it affects the people around them. He's bothered by it because, okay, well, now that's going to be a wound for someone else, or a potential stumbling block for someone else. No one wins in death. No one does. No one does, except us who have the Lord, because we know what that means. But there will always be losers wherever there's death. There will always be hurt. And when you really realize that every life is precious, so, so incredibly precious from God's perspective, it's really hard to, it can be hard to carry that, but it's also hard to just brush it off. And it's hard to not consider, okay, like for instance with Charlie, his wife is now a widow. His children are now fatherless. And if you don't think that can have a profound impact on someone, my God, help us. Oh, Lord Jesus. Anyways, let me not get swept up in emotions myself. But yeah, it definitely has a profound impact on us all. Um so, there is no such thing as controlling someone's feelings. You're just going to make them all you're doing when you say something like you shouldn't feel this way or you're too sensitive, all that stuff, is you're kind of redirecting the pain that they already feel. The pain doesn't go away. The pain is there. It's there. No matter how silly you think it is or whatever the case is, it's there. It's like here, right? But it could go this way or it could go this way or it could go that way. And unfortunately, in our society, what we've seen a lot of, like from the beginning of the American dream, first people coming over to, I shouldn't say the first people coming over, but as society started to develop and everything, what we're seeing is, especially with kids just not being allowed to have a thought, a feeling independent of what the adults around them told them that was okay. And this has had generational effects. And a lot of it has turned into a hardness of heart, resentment, and pride. To the point where now older generations, and this is not a slam on them, it's just a call for them to be healed, for us to pray for them, for us to intercede for them. A lot of them don't even have the capacity to be sensitive because it's been kind of robbed from them. Like children are such sensitive creatures most of the time. So when you shut that aspect of a child's development off, like no like room to express your emotions or anything like that, you've stunted them and with growth emotionally and mentally. Part of my healing with this situation that the Lord has shown me to help me a lot actually, to be honest, is that shoot, what was I gonna say? Um that what I'm dealing with parents, with whomever in the older generations who are very not sensitive, is people who never got a chance to not only express themselves, but they couldn't grow past, the emotional age of 8, 9, 10, something like that. Try going through life with that kind of disposition on your spirit, and you know, growing up and lifing and all the other afflictions and issues that you'll have throughout your day, throughout your time, getting in a relationship and not working out, dealing with this person, dealing with that angry boss, dealing with that and all this stuff. And it just adds to that. Like it just adds to that. That's just how it sounds simple and maybe even stupid. I don't know. But it adds to that. Because if you're not emotionally aware, going back to my list of ways to tell like someone is hurting, you're hurting, whomever. If you do not have a good sense of self, actually, it's like the quote, one of my favorite quotes recently that I read. It says, if you do not, I forgot it. If you don't deal with wounds, oh God, what is it? Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I forgot it. Dang it, how embarrassing. Anyways, it's something like if you don't deal with wounds of the past or wounds of those who have hurt you, you'll bleed on people who never cut you. And I'm like, oh, that is so deep. Whoever came up with that, go off. But anyways, it's true. Um, if you saw my video, my last video on this, I broke down what it is. Did I? I think I did. I actually don't remember what I said in it because it's just like, okay, here and there and then it's gone. Time for new information. But I talked about, how this generational trauma can look and how if you don't have emotional maturity, it will affect every area of your life. 100%. It'll affect every area of your life because it will affect how you see you, it'll affect how you see other people, and you'll always operate with that idea. Like, okay, so for instance, if you've had some trauma as a kid and you're hurting, and then you start to develop kind of spirit of anger, you will always operate from that position. You'll probably think people are, trying to hurt you, whatever. You might be very like distrustful of people. And it may not be as extreme as like, I just don't want to deal with people. That's an extreme. But it can be in the sense of just you always, maybe you have a hard time like opening up. Me. You have a hard time opening up. You have a hard time letting people in emotionally because you always kind of have this idea in the back of your mind that as soon as you do open up, they're going to say something to invalidate you. Oh my gosh, this is helping me. If it's not helping you, it's helping me. But anyways, they're going to say something to invalidate you. They're going to say something to hurt you, and so you can't be vulnerable with them. And trust me, if you operate like that, you won't get very far with people. You really will not. I have come to realize that I really had to take this seriously. Actually, even just last year because I love like dealing with emotions and people's feelings and stuff. I actually love that kind of stuff. But when it came to me being open, not so much. So it was really a wake up call to realize, oh my gosh, am I someone who I really can't like I love like listening to other people, but when it came to me wanting to express, I was limited in my expression of like emotional depth. And so really when I would have a connection with someone on that level, there would be this weird discrepancy where it's like, well, okay, and where's your side in this? They're like looking at me like, okay, now it's your turn. And it's like, oh no, no, I'm good. And that's a one-sided thing. I'm just gonna read this comment here. Um, I think the person's gone though, unfortunately. I'm sorry, Greg. What about manipulating someone's feelings? Well, I don't know exactly what that was in reference to, but obviously manipulating someone's feelings is wrong. And if you understand it from a sound mind perspective, which is something only the Lord can help you can heal you with. We say manipulative stuff all the time. It's a part, one of my favorite verses. I'm going to misquote it a little bit, forgive me, but it says something like, say yes and no. Anything in between is of the enemy. That anything in between accounts for being manipulative. That anything in between counts for gaslighting. That anything in between counts for all that like type of speech. And I know in the West, especially, not saying that it doesn't exist in other places, but definitely in the West, we have a serious issue with being upfront. We say stuff all the time that is borderline manipulative. All the time. There's a term someone maybe can help me with, and it's like, oh, passive aggressive. Um, when someone is passive aggressive, they're manipulative. When someone's gaslighting, they're manipulative. When someone is controlling, they're manipulative. When someone is any of the, I mean, manipulation is like an umbrella. It's not like a one-way thing. I think people think like, oh, you're manipulative, like you're just so controlling and scary. No, no, no. It's an umbrella and it takes on many different forms. And unfortunately, because of the evil that exists in us, just point blank, period, the verse that says, above all things, our hearts are deceitful and desperately wicked, would justify ourselves and say some of the most cruelest things without realizing. And it might not be that cruel in the natural, but if you understand in the spiritual what's going on, what you're saying when you manipulate someone, all that stuff, you'll never want to speak without a filter again. You'll be so aware of the weight of your words, because it's not just, there's a reason why. I don't want to get into that too much because that's a topic for another time, but there's a reason why there's a verse that says, somewhere in Psalms, I believe, might be Proverbs actually. I think it's in Proverbs. There's a verse that says, the heart, no, I'm sorry. Oh God, what is it? There is power of death and life in the tongue. There's a reason why it says that, and it's not just like some like, oh, just think about your words. It's not that. It's deeper than that. But I'm not going to get into all that right now. But yeah, we've all been manipulated. We all manipulate, and it's obviously it's wrong. Now, the issue is that since we don't have sound mind, we will say stuff that's manipulative without even realizing it. That's just a part of the problem. Only the Lord can give sound mind. Only Him. We naturally do not have it. It's His, it's one of the things that the lack of sound mind is something that if you are aware, or I should say, yeah, I guess if you're aware, you will see, okay, I need God, you know. I need help because I'm not perfect. I can hurt people without even realizing it, without even meaning to. Most of the time we hurt people without even meaning to, but yet we want to carry on in life. We want to carry on in life as if we don't need the Lord. And it's like, no. We on our own, did I say owns? On our own, we will miss it. We miss it. We cause wounds, sometimes just on ourselves, self wounds, self afflictions. We need the Lord. We absolutely do. But anyways, so let me get through this list because I think this is gonna be the last point that I make. Hopefully, we'll see. So, if someone needs some emotional healing, and they say stuff like, oh, I don't need any help. I don't need to talk to anyone about my feelings. Lack a sense of self, anger, miss, uh, what is it? An unhealthy way of dealing with emotions, pride. They can't even be told that they're wrong. A lack of sensitivity. Number 5, a lack of sensitivity. they're unable to understand someone else's feelings or emotions or anything like that. Or they might be able to understand it on the surface level, but it'll just be like very, very surface level. It'll be very fleeting. It won't be something like they won't be able to be in a position to carry anyone else's burdens. This is also something that the Lord has used to heal me, that it's like, um, you know, if someone is not sensitive emotionally, they'll have no capacity to be able to carry anyone else. It's not them trying to be cruel, it's just they don't have it. So that's another thing. If you don't, if a burden is only a burden for like a day or so, you know, that could be a lack of emotional depth and maturity, because we all need help. We all need someone to carry us. We all need someone to be, um how do I say this? Like, there are some people who are called to be intercessors and carry people. But all of us should feel kind of the need or the obligation to carry like our family at the very least. Um that should be a given. And honestly, think about that. If everybody in a family, even if it's just a family of, maybe it's just a single parent and a child, but or just a couple, we'll just say just a couple. If I feel a burden to pray for you on a daily, and you feel a burden to pray for me on the daily because we're family, it's going to be really, really hard for the enemy to get to us, because we're both going to be prayed up. We're both going to be, like, we're both going to be covered. Like, that's crazy. That's how it should be. We should be able to, we should be burdened for at least our families, as far as prayer goes, as far as taking that back to the Lord. And I'm not even talking about if there's like an issue, that just elevates it. Like, say, like someone in your family is going through some diagnosis or something like that. That's obviously like something to pray for. But I just mean just naturally, just in general. That's how it should be. We should be able to take our burdens. It actually says that in the word. I don't remember exactly where, but there is a scripture that talks about we should be able to like speak on our burdens one what is it? I can't remember, but something like that. We should be able to take our burdens to our brothers, to our sisters. That's how it should be. Um I think okay, so I went through the list of what it could look like if you need healing. If you say those things, know these things about yourself. I would actually add to the first point where I said lack of um understanding of self or realization of self. If it's also not even a consideration, that, oh, maybe I need to like examine self. I need to, you know, think about my faults, my not faults. I can't think of the word. The areas I'm missing at, the areas that I'm doing well in. If that's not even consideration, then yeah, that's a part of it. You don't have a good grip of self, grip of understanding of self. Um so there's that anger, addiction, or directed emotions, um, expressing emotions in unhealthy ways, in ways that don't actually deal with the issue, pride, anger, and a lack of sensitivity. And it might sound silly, but a lack of sensitivity two major issues with that. A lack of sensitivity will make you disconnected from others. I mean, you might find connection with people who also share in not having a lack of sensitivity and an ideology that doesn't care about other people's sensitivity, but that's not what you want, right? That'll give way to pride, anger, all that stuff. Offense, other stuff as well. So you, again, I mean, just like I was saying with the prayer thing, you won't be able to carry people because there will be a disconnection. Like, if you ever dated someone or married someone or whatever the case is, where you cannot connect with them emotionally, it doesn't matter how attractive they are, it doesn't matter how good, whatever, it's not going anywhere. Unless you both just don't emotionally get it, then fine, whatever. But it's not going to go anywhere. Number one. So number one, it's an issue with dealing with people. Actually, there's three things here. Number two is an issue spiritually, and this is broken down into two parts. So it's an issue spiritually because being sensitive in the spirit requires an amount of you being sensitive in the natural, if that makes sense. Like, for me, always, even before I really was adhering to the things of God, I naturally had a disposition towards people where I felt their pain, and I like always felt like, there's something I need to do, there's something I want to do for them, whatever, and I'll take that back to the Lord. And that's what he uses now. Now he's pruned me a whole lot. So now I he'll put those burdens on my heart. It's not just anyone and everyone. Sometimes it is, but he'll put the burdens on my heart. But that natural sensitivity is what gave me an appointment, so to speak, before the Lord. So if you are emotionally not sensitive, not able to hear other people's perspectives, not able to, carry people, God is not going to be as incentivized to work with you. Now you can break that down, you can improve, but if it's not naturally there, that'll be a roadblock, especially with hearing him. With hearing him, it'll be very difficult. Um, it'll be difficult. In case it's not known, your emotions actually do play a role in spiritual understanding, in spiritual things. They actually do. Now, it's not a role like it's not like how we naturally think about, relate to, understand emotions. It's not like that. Because your emotions, they have to be submitted to something, submitted to self. But actually submitted to self, really submitted to God, but you have to have control over them. So emotions, they play a role. And sometimes your emotions can give you an appointment with the Lord. A lot of people have found God through being very, very, very like emotional, having an absolute breakdown. And that's where God was meant for them. So that was kind of my story too, a little bit. But anyways, so it'll be really difficult to hear from God consistently if you do not have a level of emotional sensitivity. A level of it, not just fully emotional, but a level of it. And then the other side to that, of course, is that if you do not have a good grip on your emotions, the enemy can and will use that against you. he can and he will use that against you. This can be the case for someone who is not very emotional. This can be the case for someone who is very emotional. It doesn't matter. It's this it'll both of those are, this is why I say it has to be under control, because both of those are areas in which he can use that against you. If it's under control, it'll be a whole lot more difficult for him to use that against you. But if you are not emotional at all, you can be very cruel. And if you're too emotional, you can be just an absolute mess of a person. Sorry, it's just true. So, yeah. I think I'll come back at another point and talk about the healing thing because my throat is. Well, maybe I'll try it. I'll try and get it out. I might have to do a part two to this though. But okay, so now that we see what it can look like if someone isn't healed or is hurting to a degree, whether they are aware or not. Most likely they're not. Now we need to understand that healing has to be, it has to be a part of the deliverance, and it has to be made perfected in you. Otherwise, you will still hurt. Excuse me. But that hurt won't be so much internalized. It'll take more of an external lens. So, for instance, say you have a situation where you grew up in a household where there was, a lot of manipulative language, controlling language, whatever the case is. This is a really big issue that we're seeing today. A lot of people are very, very upset and angry with their parents or whoever raised them. And they're not completely unjustified. I mean, each situation is obviously different and unique. I'm not speaking for every situation, but in general. So, people are not healed, and we're going forward as if we are healed, thinking cutting people off or ghosting them, cutting people off, whatever the case is. And I'm talking more like with um I'm not talking so much like romantic situations or anything like that, although that could be a part of it. I'm more talking about like this trend of going like no contact or low contact with your parents and stuff like that. Now again, I want to be sensitive. I understand that there are people who like their life was hell. Their life, they were just, it seemed like they were just born to be abused, unfortunately. I'm not talking about those kind of situations at all. And my sympathies go out to anyone who is in that situation or was in that situation or anything. I pray that you're out of that. I pray that you seriously get the healing that you need. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about most of us generally who realize that, oh, our parents missed it here and there and here and there, and then now we're all upset. We will begin to become a very prideful, angry and bitter spirit if we do not get the proper healing, because we will take that pain that we had, and instead of it completely being freed from it and healed from it, we will now how do I say this? Instead of taking an internal view of that pain, now it'll be more external. Now it'll be more that person. I can't believe they did this. I can't believe they did that. And you can become a very, very bitter spirit without even realizing it because of not healing properly. I'll never forget this pastor, I think it was a pastor, shared this one thing. I thought it was so profound because I knew like he heard from the Lord. I knew that. I don't even know who this guy is, but I just came across this video and I'm like, yep, the Lord spoke to you for sure. And he said that he had this time where the Lord like woke him up at like 3 a.m. and said, "Tell my people, for those who call themselves victims, tell them." Hopefully I can remember it. It was like, tell them they will not, what was it? They will be held accountable for the unforgiveness that they hold, or something to that effect. And I was like, whoa, let me sit with that. They will be held accountable for the unforgiveness that they hold. Meaning, God has all the sympathy and healing ready for you when you've been hurt. He has all the sympathy, He has all the care and concern. He wants to heal you Himself by His own hand. But when you want to take it into your own hands and not submit it to Him, you will find yourself becoming just as evil from His perspective, just as evil as the person who hurt you, because now you're thinking those similar thoughts towards them. Now you're like, wow, they did this to me and they did that to me and I just wish they would die, blah blah blah. I don't know, I'm making something up. But anyways, I might come back and do one just on healing, because there's some points to consider if you've truly been healed or not. But as of now, I think I'm gonna stop. um Thank you for joining. I appreciate it. If I come back, it'll either be later tonight or tomorrow. I'm not sure, but we'll see. All right. That's all I got for you. Bye.